Well, hello, and welcome everyone. What we are doing today is an amazing discussion on how to achieve success as an advisor. So what I'd like to do, we have a huge panel here, which is just amazing. So what I'd like to do is first of all, just have everyone go ahead and share their webcam. Hello, this is me. I'm Karen Sherwood. And yeah, if we can have all of hi Belinda. Hi Susan. Hi Andrea. Hi Cameron. Hi Edgar. Woo! Yay. And I don't know if everyone else can get
Mine
their
says that
webcam going.
all the spaces are being used, so I'll say hello later. Hi.
Oh, okay. I guess there's only this amount. I'm going to turn mine off just real quick since I'm not an advisor. And and then what we will do is just do a quick introduction and say hello to our panelist of amazing advisors, and then we will jump in and get started with all of the details. So let's go ahead and start with Belinda. If you just want to say just a quick hello, just so that we can connect with you, connect with your voice, and then just say where you're from, and we'll get in more into the discussion a little later on. So let's start with Belinda. Hello, Belinda. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Belinda, and I live in Redwood City, California, near Menlo Park, Palo Alto. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And Cameron.
Hi, my name is Cameron, and I'm originally from Anchorage, Alaska, and I live near San Francisco right now. So I'm calling in from a couple hours away from San Francisco.
Wonderful. Great to see you, Cameron. And Edgar. Hey, Edgar.
Hi.
Thanks for jumping in and joining us.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I was not expecting this to be as it is now, but anyway. I'm Edgar. I'm originally from Portugal, and I live in Norway for the past 9 years. So I work and live here, yeah.
Wonderful.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Pleasant surprise.
Great to see you, Edgar. And Suzanne. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you, Karen. I am a Canadian, but and living in Seattle, Washington.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Suzanne. And Susan.
Hi, everybody. I am originally from the United States, but for the last 10 years, I've lived in Switzerland. So I'm calling in from Switzerland, near Zurich.
Wonderful. Welcome, Susan. And Lavina. Oh, it looks like your microphone's not working. There we go.
My camera wasn't working. Hello, everyone. I'm from Sedona, Arizona, originally from Hawaii. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. And then if you can everyone here can turn off their cameras momentarily, and then we can pull up, who are we missing? Andrea and Cheryl. And let's see. Yep. I think Andrea and Cheryl, if you can pull up your cameras and just say a quick hello. And if not, that's fine as well. All right. There we go. Hi, Andrea. Oh, it looks like we can't hear you.
Yeah, my computer.
Oh, there we go.
For me. Hi.
Great.
Everyone in person. I'm Andrea. I live in New York City, but I grew up in Michigan.
Wonderful. Great to have you here. Exactly. And let's see. There we go. Yay. welcome, Cheryl. Oh, it looks like I can't hear. Make sure you're unmuted there. Oh, it sounds like we still can't hear you. Oh, there we go. Now we can.
Hey, everyone. So nice to be here with all of you. So excited to be here and be part of this. From Philadelphia in the United States. Enjoying the rest of the summer.
Wonderful. Excellent. Yay. All right. So I'm going to have everyone turn off their cameras for a moment. I'm going to do just kind of a quick overview of the advisors, and then we are going to hear from each of our panel. All right. So I will turn my camera back on momentarily here. There we go, and get everything positioned. And I think I have this so this will work correctly. Let me just, let's see. View presenter. Okay. Just so this also records properly as well. All right, so let's take a look, just a quick overview of our advisors, and then we have some questions. We're really going to open it up to a discussion because, you know, it's one thing to hear it from me as a classic builder. It's a whole other thing to really hear from our advisors and really hear what has contributed to their success. So when we take a look at our advisors, just to give us a big context, in the perfect world, we have the innovators that are here to get things started. They're the ones that have the impact. We have builders like myself to provide the energy to move things along. So the builders are about energy. Now we have advisors, and advisors are what we're going to be focusing on. And the advisors are here to lead and guide the process. It's about recognition. And then we have our evaluators that tell us how well things are going or not. So they are here for objectivity. I love this little picture here because it really sort of represents what each of the individual types do. And it's almost like a little ladybug. So we have the innovator that's the body of the ladybug to get things going. We have the express builders and the classic builders, sort of like the wings of the ladybug. To move it forward, to provide the energy for movement. We have the advisors, and we can see that advisors are only 21% of the population. And even though they're only 21% of the population, they are actually have the most diversity. So that's what we're going to be exploring here today. So advisors are sort of like the head, you know, the eyes, leading and guiding the ladybug. And we have then the evaluator that's like the antenna to kind of see the big picture and be objective in that way. So what we're going to be focusing on today is really exploring what it is to be an advisor. So just as, and we're going to get into this, and this is also food for thought for all of our panelists. So for our advisors, when recognized, you excel at organizing and leading individuals, groups, and systems. And you can be a gifted organizer, administrator, networker, or mediator, and you can bring people together and maximize energy and maximize resources. Now, what we're talking about today is how to be successful as an advisor. And the key to your success, and I'm really excited to hear from our panel in how they experience this. So the key to your success depends on having energetically healthy people around you who acknowledge your skills and offer you their energy resource to work with and guide. So again, we're going to hear from our advisors about all of this. And here's some of the keys, and I would love to hear from our panel too as we're discussing this. These are just little keys to jog your memory and to jog your mind of things that we can start to discuss here in just a moment. But when we're taking a look at the keys to the advisor's success, it's about waiting to be recognized. And it's waiting to be recognized for your gifts and your skills and your talents and your ways of seeing things, waiting to be recognized and invited. And when you are recognized and invited, that's where your true gifts emerge. And that's where true success happens. Being selective and accepting only correct invitations. You know, it's not about accepting any invitation. It's waiting and being selective about what truly is correct by following your decision-making strategy. And then we have mastering systems. So one of the keys to your success as an advisor is mastering systems or mastering a system. Again, you're here to lead and guide others. It's not about doing all the doing. Remember, the wings are the builders that move things along and provide the energy. You're not here to do all the doing. You're here to lead and guide the process. So knowing how to ask the right questions is really key. And how you work best is you work one-on-one with others. And what's really, really also very, very key is resting when needed. You don't have the same kind of go, 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 go energy as the builders. So it is really important to rest when needed. So we're going to get into the discussion here. And before we do that, I want to point out that, again, the advisors are the most diverse of all the different career types. There's 3 different categories of advisors. So we have energy advisors, we have classic advisors, and we have mental advisors. And there are 5 potential decision-making strategies. So one of the things that's very interesting about our advisors, again, is that they are so diverse. And so when we take a look here at our panel, you can see that we have several energy advisors. So we have Lavina, I don't know if Peggy's joined us yet, and Cameron, Andrea, and Susan are all emotional advisors. So essentially there are 6 distinct types of advisors. So we have our energy advisors, which are about waiting for recognition and invitation and then waiting for clarity. We have our instinctive energy advisors, which we have Belinda, which is waiting for recognition and invitation, then trusting your instinctive knowing. We have the willful advisors. So we have Cheryl here, waiting for recognition and invitation, then trusting your willful determination. So those are the energy advisors. And we can see with the energy advisors, they have one of these 3 motors defined. So they have drive and stamina, they have emotional intelligence, or they have willpower defined. This is what makes them an energy advisor. Now with the classic advisor does not have one of the motors defined. And so here we have Edgar, and I think, Edgar, you're a self-advisor, is that correct?
Yep, that's
Yep.
correct.
Yeah, so, and I didn't get Edgar's picture here on time, but we have Edgar here who's a self-advisor, so it's about waiting for recognition and invitation, then listening to what you say. There's also the instinctive classic advisor. So we have the instinctive energy advisor. We also have the instinctive classic advisor. That's the only one I think we don't have represented here today. And then we have the mental advisor. So we have Suzanne, who's the mental advisor. This is waiting for recognition and invitation, and then listen to what you say with several people. So I wanted to give you just the big picture view first. And now what we're going to do is we're going to really start the discussion and hear from the advisors themselves what it is to be an advisor. How do they achieve success? And specifically talking about their decision-making strategy. So again, we have all of the different types of advisors represented, except the instinctive classic advisor, but we do have the instinctive energy advisor here. So here are the questions, and what I'm going to do is open it up to our panel. We're going to start with Suzanne, and then we'll kind of go with the flow and open it up to our other advisors. So here are the questions that we would love for you to answer. And as we go through this, if anyone who's listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to type in the questions area so we can answer your questions. And then again, we'll just open this up to a general discussion as well. So here are the questions that I would love to hear from each of our advisors. So the first one is just, what is your personal process? What was your personal journey in learning about being an advisor? So for example, what were things like before you knew you were an advisor? What did you learn about being an advisor that really made a difference? And how did it make a difference? And how is your life different now? So the first question is just about your personal journey in understanding what it is to be an advisor. The second question is all about your decision-making strategy. So, what do you recommend in waiting for recognition and invitation? What is that process all about? And basically describing the way that the specific way that you make decisions. So again, part of why we have 6 distinct types of advisors is because each of you have different decision-making strategies as well. So again, telling your personal journey, sharing about your specific decision-making strategy, and then also talking about what specific recommendations do you have for other advisors. So what can help you live correctly in a world dominated by builders. Remember, advisors are only 21% of the population. 70% are builders. And so anyone who's not a builder, can get very conditioned to have that go, 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 just like the builder. So specifically for the advisors, what specific recommendation do you have for other advisors so that they too can be successful? So your personal journey, your decision-making strategy, and specific recommendations. All right, so let's start with Suzanne. So I'm going to turn off my camera, and if you want to turn on your camera, Suzanne, and would love to hear from you and your experience of being an advisor.
Well, thank you. And there's my chart. All right, great. Yeah, well, I think the first question, and I'll do the first one, and then maybe you can interact with me, Karen, if you want to, and then I can move on or wherever you'd like to do it. It was about maybe 15 years ago now that I had my chart done and learned about human design. And I remember first the sense of recognition actually in the reading about myself as an advisor. It was like, oh my God, that's so right. That's so right. And that felt like a profound seeing that I'd never had, or a kind of reflection of an experience that I was having that was a lot of it unconscious, reflected to me. I would say I've always been, what you were describing, Karen, a leader or someone shaping, guiding things. So that was familiar, but I also was the generator for sure, and super hyperactive as a child, actually. I'm sure that I have, and you can see in my chart, I've got all these open centers, and I'm sure I was just magnifying everybody else's energy. And I was, running everywhere. I remember when my last year of high school, in the yearbook, I was in, I think it was something like in every single photo, my class photo, but I mean every team, every club. It was like I was everywhere. And that was just what I had to do. It felt like I had all this energy. I had to do something with it. And running on engines that really weren't mine. So the deconditioning process, I will say, has taken its time. I think Rod talked at one time about it taking 7 years. I don't know if that's still the way you think about it, but it did take me a while to be able to wait, to rest, and to even know what that would mean, to wait for an invitation. The one thing I'll say that's the not self emotional pattern of the projector advisor that those of us who are advisors will, I'm sure, all recognize is bitterness. And that absolutely was a theme in my life of feeling not seen. And even though I was, as I said, with the high school yearbook, everywhere, all of that was really about trying to be seen. Would someone just really see me? That deep seeing, the seeing of my true essence, in a way, I was moving so fast, I don't know if that could happen. That not self, trying to be this, live in a builder world as an advisor. Yes, those are some first thoughts of the first question. Do you want to add anything, Karen? Or?
Yeah, I would love to now hear, especially you can see that you are a mental advisor. And again, we can see that it's a mental advisor because there's no definition below the throat, right? You only have one strength. So I would love to get a feel for what your experience is, one, in making decisions, but two, also your experience of being a mental advisor, because again, it is something that is very rare.
Yeah. Well, that has been probably one of the biggest and most potent learning for me. First of all, feeling the recognition as I've come to understand it in human design of what I exactly do. This one channel I have, which is what makes me the mental projector, is called the genius to freak channel. Or at least that's one of the expressions where you have all these ideas and they're very new and I'm bringing in new ideas all the time. That's what I do. Or you can seem like a freak, depending. And this is where knowing the correct invitations is so key for me, because I think before I would say yes to any invitation, I think. And now it's a very different process for me. I'm very fine-tuned now to what are the correct invitations. So what that feels like, and for me, and I'll go work my way through it. It's recognition, invitation, and then how do I make the decision? So the recognition is I know when someone sees that particular genius, the very thing I'm here to bring. I work with women in the awakening of consciousness and leadership, and somebody recently asked me to do this motivational speak at a conference, and it was kind of motivational rah-rah, and all I could do that. That is absolutely not my genius. And my genius is the system I've figured out that's got a lot of depth and research, and I knew I wasn't being seen. So that was the first thing. No, you don't see who I am. So that's not your fault. It's just you don't. So that wouldn't be an invitation I say yes to. So if then I could feel that there is an invitation from something, then I have this interesting decision-making, which is like I call this acoustic chambers. And maybe you've said that sometime, Karen, or others have. And one is not enough for me. So if I'm trying on the big things, my relationships, where do I live, what big projects I take on for my work, I have dear friends who know human design also, and know that I'm not looking for them to solve my problem, but I am looking for them to hold the space for me. And so I'm listening for what I say in the context of this acoustic chamber, but I'm also listening to what they then reflect back and how I respond to that. So if I hear back from several people, yeah, I hear you saying da-da-da, and then that's interesting for me. And the other thing I'll just add, for those of you who might be mental projectors, mental advisors, is I'm also listening for any random information from around me. So synchronicities. So I'm considering, going to France, and then I'm trying to decide, is it the right timing for that, and speak at this particular conference, and I go into a grocery store and somebody in the line is talking about France. And then I might ask them a question and see what comes back to me. Like, what do I, or are they saying something about this positive experience they just had in France? And that's all information I'm gathering. It's quite I used to feel it as a burden that I couldn't make a decision right away. Now I feel it as a kind of elegant unfolding of the mystery. And when I know, and then it's just like, I know, okay, that's it.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautifully, beautifully shared. And I love what you talked about with the acoustic chambers. It's listening to what you say, and it's listening to what's there in the environment too, that really informs what your decision is. I love how you shared that.
Okay.
Beautiful. Now, is there any anything that you would like to recommend? What are some maybe top key takeaways for especially anyone who happens to be a mental advisor? What would you recommend, or what would you suggest to people who are a mental advisor, specifically? How they can best achieve success, how they can move past the bitterness into that success.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. This is a lot of what I teach is how to source your doing from the deep ground of being. We teach what we need to learn. And so that's a very big thing for anyone who's a mental advisor. We have really to be able to pulse in and rest back, to take the time to I kind of call it bleeding out the centers energetically, because I take in a lot of energy. It's a lot of what makes me good at what I do, because I can read what's happening with others in an environment. But that looks for me like, for example, an afternoon nap is critical. And I tell my staff, if someone calls during the afternoon and I'm napping, to say I'm napping, like to make it an acceptable activity. But for me, that's like an enormous release. It's like everything I've taken in just goes out and I'm like a new person afterwards. And so I think any practices that are allow you to know how to cultivate stillness are super important for us. The other thing I think I'd say is what it means to wait for an invitation. In a builder world, it's so hard. And I am in many ways, I'm an initiator. I'm starting I'm leading a movement. I'm, bringing new theory into the world and new ways of doing things. It's kind of initiator-ish. But what I would say is the way I live it now is I'm not exactly sure how this movement's supposed to move, and I'm waiting for the information from the around me to determine that. So it's like, rather than I got to make this thing happen, for advisors to cultivate, kind of in yoga we say resting into the back body and trusting that life will come toward you. And then when you get better at recognizing what's yours to do, you'll then be able to do it and not be totally burnt out, which I was for many years.
Yeah. Yeah, very beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Suzanne. And I just wanted to check to see if there's any questions, and then I'd like to continue on also then with our next guest. But I think it's really important, since again this is one of the most rare of all advisors to kind of get a sense and a feel for what this is about, and especially if you happen to be a mental advisor. I hope what Suzanne shared really gave you an opening and some ideas of how how you can work best also as a mental advisor. And I think a couple key things that Suzanne mentioned was, being able to, especially with all of the openness, being able to, get away and discharge all of that energy, making sure that you're resting. Somebody was saying definitely love the chamber of sound. I think that was really, really brilliant.
One thing another thing I'll say is for advisors with a lot of openness, anyway, is if I'm at a party, or I can get so jacked up on the energy that's going at a concert or any kind of collective event, which is fun. I can do that, but I have to take myself out of the group energy. And I've gotten better at this, go to the bathroom or go outside for a moment and feel, am I done here? Do I actually need to go home now? Because I think one of the things we can do with this openness is go way beyond what's correct for our system and get supercharged.
Yeah.
And then we get sick, and bad things, not good things happen, let's just say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne. And I just wanted to check in with Natalie and just monitoring the questions. Are there any questions there?
There's one question for Amy that I think is something all advisors wonder about. So you're here to master systems, but how will the system that you are here to master be obvious to you, or will it just, can you trust that it will come to you?
Yeah, great question. And what I'd like to do is, if there's someone else on the panel that would love to answer that question, just so that we can start to hear from some of you, you can start by answering that question.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to go off camera now. And,
yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Beautiful. How about Cameron?
You want me to go next or try answering that question?
Both.
Both, okay. All right. So I only caught part of the question, unfortunately. Could you repeat it, Natalie, please?
Yeah, sure. So Amy is asking, and I have to scroll down a bit because it was a while back. Yeah, I wonder, will it become obvious for me which system I am to master? Does every advisor need a system, or can I trust and wait for that to come to me?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, systems definitely offer a huge advantage. So I've known advisors that got known for just being gifted at reading people and giving guidance. The challenge with that is it's difficult to explain to someone else what you're doing or how or why, if they don't already know you, they should trust you. If you have some expertise, then it's a lot easier for people to kind of mentally think of ways where you could be helpful, right? And as far as which system to master, BG5 and human design is probably the most powerful tool along these lines. So that's a good choice. But ultimately, I would recommend following your curiosity. Just whatever really fascinates you. And it might not seem like a specific system, at least not at first, but maybe just a general topic. When you dive into that, you start to talk about it. You start to naturally kind of share with your circle, or, maybe a bit more broadcast, maybe you start a blog or something, whatever appeals to you. In some way, what I've seen is a person does tend to get recognized once they develop this expertise.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Cameron. And hopefully that answered the question. Again, it really is. I love what Cameron just said. It's following your curiosity. Like, what is something that you love to do, that you love to study, that you love to kind of dive into, and that's the system that you're here to master. And as Cameron said, as far as leading and guiding the process, connecting one-on-one with people, in my humble opinion, there's no better system than the human design or the BG5 system. So, yeah. Great, Cameron. And Cameron, I would love to hear from you. You are an energy advisor, and you are an emotional energy advisor. So I would love to hear, in a sense, first of all, your journey and learning about what it is to be an advisor, then specifically talking about your decision-making strategy and how it works, and again, ending with any recommendations that you may have for other advisors.
Sure. So, man, I could talk about my journey for quite a while. I'll keep it brief to not take up too much time. But I got fascinated when I was pretty young by personality types. I recognized that there was something a little different about me, and I couldn't quite jive with people in the way that most seem to easily. So I was trying to figure out the difference, and I found Myers-Briggs and learned that really thoroughly, and then started exploring other systems. And eventually, I actually, started getting invitations from people to read their type and offer an analysis of some kind. I eventually built a business on that, led a whole bunch of crazy directions. It was really fun. But let's see. I definitely had a handful of personal challenges that were not resolved by understanding that framework. One of them is, the classic advisor thing. I recognized that my gift that I share with people is reading them in some way and offering some perspective and guidance. And so when I'd meet somebody, I would try to do that. And I would often get rejected, and when I would go into that state of trying to read somebody, I think this is true for all advisors, I become more vulnerable, more sensitive. So rejection when in that state, especially when I'm just trying to help, just trying to make friends, just trying to, offer something of value, is especially painful. And so bitterness was definitely a theme for me. In 2012, I discovered human design. That's a whole bizarre story in and of itself, but we'll save it for another time. Was introduced to human design and immediately dismissed it as obvious baloney because it was based on birth time. How could that possibly, be how the world actually works? And then it just kept popping up in my experience through different people that I met and so on. And eventually I decided to look closer. And what I found that had me really start paying attention is this period of my life I was traveling with a handful of people that were going through a deep sort of spiritual evolution process. And what I noticed is that the people that went the deepest through the process and experienced the most deconditioning is what I would term it now. What I noticed is they naturally started following their strategy and authority. And without having, had any design analysis or anything. That's just what they did once they were clear and themselves. So that told me that there's something really worth paying attention to here in design. So I started studying, and since my background for so many years was in personality types, I was pretty sure I could figure it out on my own. So started studying for a couple of years, reading stuff online mostly, a couple videos and that kind of thing. Even found a recording of Raw somewhere, like a long one. But long story short, I think it's very difficult to really figure out design on your own. So I started taking classes, and that's when things really transformed. Recognizing how my process works as an advisor, that my energy is sort of penetrating, and that that's a wonderful gift when it's requested, and a very invasive, unwelcome experience when it's not requested. Explained my experience that I'd had before, why I had been rejected in situations where I, from my perspective, was just trying to help, and so on. So I started leaning back and just waiting for invitations to happen, while at the same time exploring my curiosity and studying design and other somewhat related things. And it's been kind of a slow burn on that. It's taken me a while to develop enough expertise, and that it sort of spread out, and people in my network started to recognize what I can do. And some crazy things are happening now. I just got invited to speak at an online conference. It's going to go out to over 1 million people. Wow. On this topic. And it's just kind of one example. There's a whole bunch of other things that kind of flow. So it does work. It can take a while. And yes, even now, there are definitely times where I feel, kind of starved because I don't have an invitation. I don't know what to do, or something along those lines. And still go through that. It's just when I kind of step back and look at the broad picture, I can recognize, oh yeah, actually, I am getting a string of the right invitations to the right things. And the more I kind of lean into that process, the more, magical, unexpected, really awesome things happen.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think, Cameron just brings up a really good point is that waiting for, if you're not waiting for recognition because of that sort of kind of penetrating energy that you have, it can be really uncomfortable for others, and it can lead to a lot of rejection. And this leads to bitterness. And I think this is a really important point for, advisors to understand that, again, if you're not recognized and invited, it can come across as people as very uncomfortable. And when you are recognized and invited, that is really the beginning of what, success is all about. And when you, and again, it's not, I often say it's not about sitting on the couch eating bonbons, waiting for the phone to ring. It really is about, being, being active in life, and those amazing opportunities, that magic then shows up, just like you explained.
Can I share one story on that?
Yeah, please.
So I'll mention this individual's name because some of you might have heard of him. But Eben Pagan was a teacher in a lot of different topics, and he made a huge difference in my life. I discovered him. Basically, he was the first real self-development source of information I ever encountered. And I was living in Alaska at the time. Went to one of his live events, and I just had this feeling that I wanted to be friends with that guy on stage, and it wasn't even about the personal relationship as much. I just kind of sensed that was the right direction I wanted to go in life. So I introduced myself, tried to make friends, and that did not work at all. I'm super busy, 500 people were trying to do that. So I was like, all right, I'm still getting a lot out of these events. So I just kept on going to them. And as opportunity arose, I made friends with the people that were regulars, came to all the events, and also the staff. The regulars, I found out, were personal friends. They were invited back because they knew him. And long story short, is doing this without forcing it, right, kind of allowing the process to work, utterly revolutionized my life. I moved. I have an entirely different social circle, entirely different business, just all kinds of things shifted. And what eventually evolved just recently, like this last year, is he had been having me do little brief personality analyses for people that he and his wife were considering hiring. I never got super close with Evan. He's he's a hermit. He's a 2-4. But they had me, they recognized I had this expertise with personality types, and they wanted to be very careful about who they chose to work with their daughter. So they would have me do a little interview and then share what I found afterwards. So I would do these interviews with, potential nannies and educators, and I would just do my projector thing. I'd do the analysis they'd requested, of course, but then in the conversation, the way I structured it, all kinds of other things pop up, and I'm able to just sort of follow my natural instinct and awareness and offer guidance when appropriate. And what I found out was happening is apparently all of these nannies were coming in afterward and going, whoa, what was that? And so he'd been getting this experience for a while, and this culminated at, he just started doing live events again in a month ago. And so I got invited to this event, and he invited me up to the stage and basically asked me a few questions about himself and his wife so that people could kind of feel what I could do, and then told the entire audience to hire me, and if they weren't happy, that he would refund them.
Wow.
So all of this just came from, I was actively waiting, I was following my curiosity and things that excited me, but at the same time, not trying to force my way into situations. And this is what evolved through the natural kind of invitation.
That's beautiful.
So one more brief thing. I guess this could qualify as a recommendation. But the metaphor I share when I'm working with advisors is that your energy is kind of like a surgeon, right? Surgery is a miraculous, wonderful, life-saving gift. It can solve problems that nothing else can solve. When you request surgery and it's done, it's, life-changing, wonderful, right? But when surgery is forced upon you when you don't request it, that's literally a horror movie, right? So this is kind of what the advisor energy is like. It's penetrating, and when that's requested, fantastic. But when it's not, it feels really bad, and that's why people find advisors that are not aligned with themselves to be kind of annoying.
Yeah. Wow. Really great analogy. Thank you, Cameron. Yeah, and I think, and just first of all, congratulations, and again, it's being actively involved in those things. It kind of ties into the mastering the system. You've been mastering BG5, you've been mastering human design, you've mastered other personality assessment tools, so you've been focused on mastering the system, and in mastering the system, you've been getting out there, you've been getting involved, also attending his events. And again, that's part of this emotional decision-making strategy too, is it takes time. We're in this world that's like this, going fast, and it's like being able to, just like Suzanne was talking about, just taking time and realizing if your decision-making strategy is emotional, it takes time. And so to be patient and to allow it to unfold, and that's where the magic happens, where all of a sudden now you're starting to get recognized and invited in a way that you don't have to push or force it. You're recognized and invited right there on stage. It's amazing.
And just to be clear, this whole process, this story that I just explained, started in like 2007 or 2008, and then this thing at the event was last month. So it took a while. Lots of stuff happened in between, of course, but it took a while.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the mastering the system. It's about that deconditioning process too. That also takes some time as well.
Absolutely. And I discovered, design in 2012, so it was 7 years ago now. And I didn't really start then because I thought it was baloney. So I'm close to my 7-year mark. But yeah, there's still a long way to go, and still a long way to go in mastering human design in BG5. There's so much wonderful information there.
Yeah, beautiful.
So decision-making strategy. So for me, it's emotional, the 1949. The trick, though, the kind of a nice little twist for me, is that my solar plex, my emotional system, is unconscious. So I don't generally know what I'm feeling. So I have to just kind of wait and notice my moods the way that you would notice them about someone else. It's like, oh, I'm doing this. Maybe I'm feeling cranky. I guess I must be feeling cranky. There's something going on there. And there's like kind of a subtle sense of discomfort or pressure when my emotional system is still going through the cycle. So it's a matter of waiting and really anchoring that feeling of clarity. This is something, again, that I found with most advisors. You can recognize that feeling of clarity because even if you don't know your strategy and authority, you have moments of it. And you recognize that you're aware of more stuff. You're just more clear in those moments. So it's a lot of it is about just imprinting that feeling and recognizing when I'm there in my consideration of a certain question.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Recommendations. Couple things. Yep. Follow your curiosity is a good one. That's, I think, a huge key. Get really good at reading people, doing the projector thing, using the energetic mechanisms that are natural to you. I'm imagining this is going to feel different for different advisors. For me, it kind of involves taking a step back from my own stuff, whatever I've got going on, my emotion, my beliefs, and so on, just kind of like setting that aside for a moment temporarily and allowing myself to be receptive to whatever worldview or belief system or, conditioning I might encounter in the other. It's just a little bit about how it works for me. Whatever it feels like for you, I recommend taking that on as a skill that you can improve upon. It's natural, of course, but you can still hone it, and that makes a huge difference. When your own stuff gets in the way, then it's very difficult to guide someone else in a helpful manner. Whatever system you're curious about, I recommend just sort of feeding your curiosity on it to the point where you're seeing it everywhere. Build a collection of, like if you're using human design, build a collection of the body graphs of everyone you know, and the celebrities that you pay attention to, the politicians you pay attention to, authors, actors in a TV show or movies, right? Like, you start to see patterns and pick things up when you have this breadth of information. Again, it doesn't have to be human design necessarily, but whatever you're using, get to the point where you're kind of seeing it in everything, and that's where this expertise really starts to come online. Now, generally, you move kind of past that to where it's not like, so much of your attention so constantly, but you need to go through that phase. That's the path to mastery here. And let's see. Last thing I had is a really tactical one. It is such a, at times, baffling struggle to me to get even very basic things done when I'm by myself. It's like, it's just ridiculous. I feel like I can't tie my shoes, and I'm like, 38, I really should be able to tie my shoes now. That's a metaphor. Of course, I can literally tie my shoes, but like, just getting basic stuff done feels so hard, and I'm still like kind of working on that one, but found a little hack. There's a website called focusmate.com, and what it does is it pairs you up for an hour with someone else that just wants to get work done. Opens a video chat window, you talk to each other for like 2 minutes and say what you're going to work on, and then you just do your thing. And having someone else's presence there, even remotely in a video window, I found is enough to help me get some of these things done when otherwise I would just be by myself and kind of struggling.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cameron. Really, really rich, amazing information that you shared there, and some really great suggestions also. Beautiful. Thank you, Cameron. All right, let's take a look at one of the other decision-making strategies as well. So, Belinda, would you be willing to share your adventure, your decision-making strategy? So, your decision-making strategy is about following your instinct, your instinctive knowing, and so would love to hear about your story, and then also any recommendations that you may have as well. And then if you want to turn on, perfect. Yep.
Okay, great. So I'll do a little bit of my story and then just focus on the decision making. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay. So I just wanted to say thank you, Cameron, and thank you. I forgot who was
Suzanne.
first. Suzanne. Okay, I thought it was Suzanne. My dad's a mental projector, and I wish he had Suzanne as a guide. He's 78, and he had a very full life. And what reminded me when Susan said in high school she did everything. My father played 5 sports. He was lettered in 5 sports, and then he was a football player and a football coach. So I think he just burned himself out, and now he's 79, and he sleeps. He sleeps. That's what he does, and I totally get it. I'm glad I did his chart so I can at least just honor him for sleeping. He had this very big life that was aligned. I don't know that he was always aligned in it, but yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And he was just swimming. He's at high schools with 4,000 students. Do you know what I mean? And he was the guidance counselor and the football coach.
Wow.
So anyway, so thank you for that. That was fascinating. So I thought what resonated too is, as Cameron, I was a teacher, and I had a very fun career as a teacher for a long time, and I did those personality types with all of my students for years and years and years, and I loved it. But I knew there was more. But before I go into that second part, I want to just say I decided to leave Florida when I was 25, and I went to Europe, and I just was on this path of traveling around the world and exploring the world, and that led me into teaching. And I do feel now, as I, reflect back on it, that it was super aligned with whatever I was doing, because I would just get invited to a country, I would show up, I would get stuff. I mean, I'm not sure there was lessons along the way. I mean, it was traveling by myself, but I would teach. People would love me. So I had this kind of rock star life because I was always kind of was flowing, right? And then I would intuitively know, okay, I'm done with Germany, or I'm done with Japan. I got to go now. And I go home, and then somebody would mention somewhere else, and I'd go there. So it was very beautiful, and I feel very blessed to have that life. And later in Silicon Valley, I was like, I was still teaching and enjoying the work. But I'm like, everybody's making a lot more money than me. I want to try tech, right? And I moved into tech, and it's been challenging in fascinating ways, beyond my imagination. And I guess, my higher self really wanted some big lessons. So I've had a lot of big lessons in the last 7 years as I moved into tech and recruiting. And I mentioned this to Karen before. I feel like the job was really aligned with me because I was a university technical recruiter, and I connected with people. I could figure out their skills. I could assess what they were good at. Then I could find them the right match. So I had all the skills to do the job, but I often was not just either in the right team or the right environment, or both, or some other stuff, that was just, intense restructuring or reorging at these companies. So I can't even, my head spins thinking about all the lessons that I've had there as a projector. And what I realized in my last job, and it was in a technical recruiting job recently, because I had the most consciousness and awakening in presence in this last job, I realized, like, when you're a projector and you're in a company that's reorging and restructuring, and there's just anxiety, you're just amplifying that anxiety through your body all day long, and it is exhausting. It's just exhausting. So all you can do is take care of yourself. And luckily it was a contract, and I didn't stay there very long. But going back to the decision making, mine is spleen, and it's instinctive. It's super lightning fast, and I get guidance all day long, but sometimes it's so fast, and because I have both of those mental things defined, my head can go in, and I also have this confusion and doubt as part of my consciousness, my life theme. My confusion and doubt will go in to my spleen, which is so subtle and soft, and kind of mess up my sandwich. So I want to say the last 2 years I've been working on that, and I'm getting a lot better. I've been working at not being in my head longer than that, but kind of noticing when I'm doing it with my decision-making authority. And then the tricky thing about that spleen is I get information all day long when I'm moving. So I'll get my answer, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing, so I can't track it. So all I can do is hope and pray that when I need that information, I'll get it again. And so I've been actually much better at that, like letting go of, okay, I got the information, but I don't have time to write it down, or I'm not in a place that I can do that. And just trusting that it'll come back to me. And it does. Not always, but it does. Because I know they say you only get one hit, but I don't know if you ask for it. And then the other thing about that too is what I've noticed is I feel like the spleen is really powerful on absolute yes, or it's going to kill you stuff. Otherwise, it can be pretty neutral. And that's a fascinating thing to understand too. Like Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter if you go to Brazil or Guatemala. Who cares? It's up to you. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking, I see everybody else getting really clear guidance. Oh, I got to go to Guatemala. And mine isn't like that at all. And I sometimes kind of force or impose what I'm seeing outside on my spleen, and it just doesn't do that. Or if it does, I'm missing it, which I get a lot of neutrality on it. So I have to also honor the neutrality and just make choices and, kind of roll with them.
Yeah. I have a quick question for you. With the 44, this is about smell. Do you find that, smell is in a sense sort of, smelling if something's correct or not? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Oh yeah, it's insane. It drives my dad crazy because my mom has it too. And because we can smell everything. And, and nobody else is smelling it. And then even with my roommate, he has mold in his truck, and I'm like, yeah, you need to get that fixed. And he's like, oh, I don't smell anything. And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? So yeah, in situations, it is like a composite for me, a composite of stuff. Like sometimes I'll get so many hits, I can't really, I don't have the discernment, at least at this present moment, to kind of see what it is. But it is kind of smell and sensing, I would say, are the most powerful.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of smell and sensing.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love what you said too, is, especially those decisions, that those life and death, kind of decisions are the ones that you can very strongly feel. Remember, this is the survival instinct. And so this is what's keeping you alive and alert and and healthy at any moment. Beautiful. Now,
I have one last thing. Yeah, on the spleen. Because it's attached to my willpower, I also have a crap ton of willpower. So I can get really pushy with lots of things. So that's also kind of what I've been trying to unwind the last 3 or 4 years, is notice when I'm getting like pushing myself into places or into decisions because then that's not that fun.
Yeah, exactly. So any last recommendations that you would, or any things that you would recommend, especially for those who have the instinctive knowing, but for advisors in general?
Yeah, I had this life for 10 or 15 years where I was in the flow, and then I had this other kind of corporate life that I was confined by the parameters of everybody and businesses and business decisions. And it really didn't work for me. And I tried to make it work, and I tried so hard. So I would suggest, and this is where I'm at right now, is, stop trying to be like everybody else, or, at least for me, because I do have all these magical, amazing skills. Yes, I don't really know how they fit into the grand scheme of the world, but just honoring that, taking my time with it, being patient. And it is frustrating because I want more income and resources to come into my life, right? But knowing and trusting and having faith that it is going to eventually come. I think Cameron's stories were beautiful, and Suzanne's too. Like things do eventually come. You just have to be super patient.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Belinda. It's really great to hear from you, and thank you for being on our panel and sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Turn off my video.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's check in with. Let's go back to let's actually go to Cheryl. I just want to see if we can take a look at the different decision-making strategy. And I know we have quite a few that are emotional, but I want to go to Cheryl. And
Hey
because
there.
what we can see with Cheryl is her decision-making strategy is a willful determination. This is also another one that is fairly rare as well. So would love to hear, Cheryl, your kind of recognition, how your decision-making strategy works, and any specific recommendations that you have for others.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep. And it looks like, do you want to turn your video on?
Okay. Is it on now?
Not
I'm not.
yet.
Okay, so, no?
Hold on one second.
Is it on now?
Nope.
Maybe.
There we go. There we
maybe-
go.
Is that? There we are. I'm having a moment in my car because it's the quietest place I can be in the moment I'm traveling. So thanks for understanding that. So yeah, I came to human design about in the summer of 2016, so not that long ago. And I came to it in a place of enormous transition. It was a time in my life where I was in a 3-year training program, and I had about 8 months to go before I was finished Gestalt therapy training program. And so a little bit of the backstory on that was just 2 years in front of that, I had a major shock in my life that essentially pulled the cornerstone of my foundation of my life, completely uprooted it. And I began to go through a deconditioning, a massive deconditioning, deprogramming process. So 2 years before 2016 and coming to this. So then in 2016, I'm still going through this process. I'm transitioning into another phase of my career. I had previously been working in crisis intervention, working mostly with survivors of suicide and the mental health field, especially around that niche population. And I had been doing that for about 12 years at the time and had been burnt out from that work for that length of time. And I was transitioning into more of a holistic practice, something that I had come to understand and want to have more of a holistic practice, so that it wasn't just dealing with a quote-unquote brain disease model, but it was something that really got into more of the new science around neuroscience and our ability to change our neural pathways. And so moving away from this brain disease model into something that was more what I integrated more of the new science. And so during this time, I started to, in this transition period, I was actually seeing a therapist at that time. I had 8 more months left in my training program. And so I wanted to see a therapist that was actually in the program that I was working with. So it was a Gestalt therapist, a therapist that they're more very experiential. If you're familiar with it, it's more holistic, it's more body-mind, it's very somatic experiencing, so it connects us back to body intelligence, which I loved. And while seeing that therapist, I came to human design and I started to realize I wasn't being seen by my therapist, and some of the tools or the suggestions or the advice that was being given to me was so not me. And so I started to have this resistance to more of a homogenized, one-size-fits-all type of therapeutic process. And I was experiencing it, and here I am, only 8 more months left in this training program going, oh my gosh, this is really taking me back in a way, almost where I was almost experiencing mild depression, something I hadn't experienced in 16 years, so a long time. And so I started to feel like, what in the world is going on? I started to turn in on myself, it had to be me, it was something wrong with me. And so I decided kind of on this curiosity, following my curiosity around design. I really didn't have a good understanding of what it was or my design type. I had very general information about it. I decided to see an analyst, a human design analyst. And over time, I ended up trading my human design, my therapy time with my therapist, I traded it for human design sessions with an analyst because I was getting so much more from it, learning more about myself, connecting back to who I really am, following my own decision-making strategy, which was enormous. You can see I'm a willful advisor, so connected to the heart, and my strength is there. And so one of the things that I used to say all of the time was, I'm a heart chick. I'm a heart chick. I didn't really understand until coming to design what that meant for me. But it was something where I had this belief that I should follow my heart. And I know that it can sound, very cliche. But when I came to design, I was like, for me at least, and for my design type, it works. And so when I came, it really grounded me. I found that I was grounded in a way that really rooted me and gave me stability, where I was no longer turning in on myself, making myself wrong. Because here I was sitting with a master Gestalt therapist of 30 plus years who I still adore to this day. And we have a great relationship. But in terms of the tools, in terms of the delivery of solutions, in terms of receiving advice and counsel, it wasn't working. And I came to understand through design why it wasn't working. And so it's so exciting to be part of this and to understand and to stop making myself freaking wrong for following my own heart and following how it feels in my body when it's off. And when it is off, the dissonance, the internal dissonance is profound. Running into the conditioning, like I said, I started like massive deprogramming in 2014 and still continuing with design even now. But conditioning is profound. It's insidious in a way, in that you can't always see it, but you can feel it. And so coming to design was really, really helpful to ground me back to who I am, getting back to the core essence of my decision-making strategy with this willful determination to really trust my heart. So I was talked away from it, right? You can't trust your heart, to coming back to myself. It's been something that I now bring to my clients, and it's really a way of relaxing back into the body, relaxing back into the experience, and being grounded in a way that, quite truthfully, I had never been grounded before. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Yeah, very beautiful. And I love that, because this is really the decision-making strategy here is what do you want? Following your heart. And I think that's really, really beautiful. Any last words or suggestions for others?
Yeah. Around this willful determination, it's something that manifests, again, body intelligence and learning to trust that is something that is so profound. And so really that whole thing about following your heart for someone with willful determination, it really feels like almost like, it's interesting to use this terminology. It's coming to me right in the moment, but it's like, it is almost like a shock, like a spark plug. Maybe that's what it is. It's more like a spark plug. And feeling that spark of excitement and following that spark of excitement, where it's connected to your heart and it makes your heart come alive in a way, and really learning to trust your body's intelligence in whatever the whatever place you have that knowing. So if it is the emotional or the instinctual or in the heart and the willful, is that you really trust your body's intelligence and really become really good friends with that part of yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautifully shared, Cheryl. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. All right, let's go to Susan, and I think there's some questions as well that Natalie has from our audience as well. So let's head over to Susan, and I think Natalie wanted to ask you those questions too to answer. Thanks again, Cheryl. And yes.
Yes. Welcome, Susan. And before we hear your experience, which I'm very interested in, this is an interesting question. I think more advisors have this bugging their minds. So how to survive in the business world, working in corporations, by being a true advisor. So Skermonte says her experiences shows that corporations expect advisors to be an advisor plus builder at the same time.
Interesting question. And I deal with this with some of my clients in the corporate world because I do work in the pharma industry. And what I talk to my advisor clients about when I'm coaching is that they acknowledge who they are, that they realize what it means to be an advisor, the potential of being a great leader. But the waiting for invitations and not being the one that speaks up first in meetings. And I know they've pushed back with me and said, oh, no. You have to speak up at meetings. You have to push. This is how it is in a corporation. The high energy, and it is a pretty much a builder world. And some innovators thrown in there. But I think that what I say to them is what happens when you know yourself, the environment lines up with that. And as long as you're trying to prove yourself as a builder or like you're like everybody else, that's what's expected of you. And some of them have been able to do this, in their own way. But I suggest to them that they don't speak up first at meetings, that they wait till they're invited. And sometimes when they're quiet is when they actually get invited because they're saying, well, what do you think? Why are you being so quiet? What do you think? You make people curious. That's one of the things that I say to them. And also, I think it's important to as best you can calm down, because it's like some of the advisors have already mentioned, when you get in those high stress environments, you take all of that in and amplify it. And somehow, I liked what Suzanne said, she steps outside and says, is this still where I need to be? But to get yourself in a quiet place where you can kind of regroup and go back out again as yourself. Because I think we're so needed in corporations. Advisors are desperately needed. But for the most part, because it's so homogenized, we get expected to be like everybody else, and we're just not. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what comes up for me right now to say about that.
Yeah, and I think, taking a look at creating those boundaries, owning, and I think it was Belinda that said, really owning, what your uniqueness is, exactly what you just said, Susan. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, and I've never worked in that kind, well, that's not true. I did a little bit, but I got out of it as soon as I could, frankly. That environment, it is pretty brutal. Well, probably for everybody, but especially I think for advisors. So we have to take care of ourselves and stand our ground as who we are. But the main thing I think is that when you know who you are, other people figure it out too, and you're given some extra space. But if you don't, then you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I think you said this too, Susan, is the more that you're aligned, and our other advisors have mentioned this too, the more that you're aligned to your own design. This is true for any type. The more that things start to fall into place, the more that things start to work. The more you start getting those recognitions, those invitations, the more that you can create the boundaries that people relate to you in a way that is correct. And so sometimes it's about training others how they need to work with you.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's why human design and BG5 is so extremely powerful and so needed. So people can have that kind of respect for each other in all environments, but since I work a lot with corporate, that they have that kind of respect for each other in corporate settings.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to share a little bit about your journey and your specific decision-making strategy? You also have the emotional wait for clarity decision-making strategy.
Yeah, sure. My before advisor experience in my work was trying desperately to get clients, talking to everybody I could think of, that kind of thing. It was really nerve-wracking. And I didn't like it, so I didn't really act like myself, and nobody ever really saw me or recognized me because I was so busy networking. As you can see, I'm a 1-3. I have networking stuff in my design, but I'm just not a networker. And so I'd go there to networking events and be really funny, which really doesn't instill a lot of confidence in someone as a coach, I think. But anyways, so that was before. Then I learned about human design, and I learned that I was an advisor. And I was immediately coached to stop networking events for a period of time, and see what happened, and instead do things I loved. This was the thing. So for me, it's so important. What do you do while you wait? Several people have spoken to that already, but for me, it was do what I love. So I studied human design, and I just loved doing that. And during that time I was studying, I think it was a 2 or 3 week period that I just didn't go to any networking events. I got an amazing offer, an invitation out of the blue through LinkedIn, actually, that was incredible. And it had me build my business to a level I never thought was possible. It was incredible. But that really convinced me that actually if I be myself, if I do what I love, if I calm down and just wait and just be myself, things come to me, and then I can be recognized. Because otherwise no one can see me. So it took a lot of relaxing for me, and that's been my journey really since I learned about being an advisor, is really just to relax. And I do, my head still spins. I've got thoughts going on all the time. I'm willful. So I think I know what I want next in my career and things like that. But mostly I just put an intention out there and then I relax again. And I find that the boat turns, the ship turns for me, and things change in the way that I hoped they would. Not magic, but I feel like if I recognize myself and calm down, the universe recognizes me.
Love that. Love that. Beautiful. Well, any last recommendations or anything else that you would like to share, either about the decision-making strategy for others that have the emotional decision-making strategy, or anything in general as an advisor? Any kind of last advice, last tips or suggestions that you would like to offer to any other advisors?
It's kind of been said about the emotional, I think, so don't know that I have too much more to say, except what a beautiful thing to be emotional. Oh, so beautiful. Such an ebb and flow and up and down. And I find, I was telling a client last night, it's so beautiful that you're emotionally defined. It's so rich, and and it's worth waiting for. It's worth waiting for that clarity to come. And the one thing I would say in terms of advice, if you will, or how to deal in a generator world, put it that way, is don't take it personally. And I have a lot of friends that are generators, clients that are generators, and sometimes I feel like I get brushed over, or I say something and and it's like Cameron was saying, when you're open, you're looking at someone, you're doing your projector thing. I like that. You're vulnerable, and they don't mean to brush over. That's what I've learned, or at least I'm going to think that, because I think that's almost always true. But when I do get kind of brushed off, I say something, people go, oh yeah, and they move on. I go, oh well, it's not a big deal, and if I can keep from taking it personally, it helps me a lot to just stay present and be there if I'm invited. Otherwise, I'm all upset and bitter and what's wrong with these guys, and it's not even true. So so that's what I would say. Don't take it personally.
I love it
if you can.
Yeah, love it.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Susan. Really, really great wisdom, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions that are coming up? Natalie?
I just texted you. No. So, well, there are, but we are taking care of it.
Okay, perfect.
Need, so.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's go to Andrea. Hello, Andrea. Great to have you. Haven't seen you for a while, so it's really great to have you here. Again, also the emotional decision-making strategy. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, your journey. Again, anything that you would like to add about making decisions through waiting for clarity, and any suggestions that you may have as well.
Yeah, this is great. She had the 18 and the 48. If anybody here knows about human design and BG5, that I have the 58 and the 16, so I feel my vitality and my joy coming out. Anyway, side note. I learned about human design about, 7 years ago, and then a few years after that learned about BG5, and I really love BG5 because my original career was in business advising, which is a really natural fit. But then my mom died when I was, this was 10 years ago. She died just from a heart attack out of nowhere, and so I became really obsessed with making the most out of my life and really becoming very healthy and learning as much as I could about this experience while we're here on Earth, which is very much why I was drawn to human design and BG5 when I was introduced to it. And in my first workshop I went to, it was like the Iron Curtain fell down. When the guy gave his explained what an advisor is, I was like, that's me, and I was hooked ever since. And my main profession is in nutrition and eating behavior. That's really my area of mastery. And what drew me to human design is how much I learned about health and eating behavior and, why we do what we do with regard to food and nutrition. Human design taught me so much about that, especially being an advisor. We tend not to know when enough is enough, and that can be with food. Like with me, I would just eat and never know when to stop. And so this training really taught me to ground more in my body and listen more into my body. And I just love that about this education, because nowhere do they say, trust yourself, trust your body, and like empower you with that message. And I'm starting to hear it more in the past year. I'm starting to hear this message more, but 7 years ago, and like never in my life have I heard that, like, trust your body. And this whole like intuitive eating movement started, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But before then, there's just follow the rules. And the whole nutrition was based on never listening to your body, because your body will always tell you to eat nothing but fries and ice cream. So you have to just dissociate basically in order to be healthy. And I didn't really resonate with that message. So I really love in my nutrition counseling to weave in what I've learned. So that's been the quick part of my journey. I think one of the biggest things I learned about was bitterness. I was very emotionally repressed, and because my emotional system is unconscious, I never really, I just didn't know that I was bitter. And so I didn't have that sort of guidance, that internal guidance of, what I should be doing or who I should be with, because I was just I was just very emotionally repressed and disconnected. So that was a gift of this education, was for like my whole emotional system to become aware of it and let it guide me. It's been challenging. I'm not going to say it's easy. The emotional system, you just have to relax and trust in it is the biggest thing, because it can take a long time to get clarity.
Yeah, beautiful. And any kind of last sort of suggestions or things that you would like to share with other advisors? Things that you've learned, or what's made it easier for you being an advisor and understanding that?
I think the biggest thing is like finding your subject or finding your system. That for me, I think more clearly, I'm healthier, I have more energy, my relationships are better. Like everything works as long as I stick to the subject that I'm really designed for. And I know that I'm studying and pursuing the correct field because my life works better. So if my life is falling apart, I'm not I'm not going the right direction. I think finding your subject or your system and mastering it is like critical. I think the other thing I would say is we're here to recognize people, and we're here to be recognized, but I think most importantly is to recognize ourselves. And the more I recognize myself, I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. The more I recognize myself and how precious advisors are, the gifts that we have to give, and how unique it is. Our builders can't do the things that we do, and the more that we recognize that and love ourselves for that, the more that the recognitions and the sense of sweetness in life will come.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Andrea. Really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Very, very powerful. And again, that whole, trusting your body. All of our decision-making strategies are in our body. And the more that we trust our body, the more we trust ourselves. And I think you spoke to really what the key is loving, trusting, and accepting yourself. And when you love, trust, and accept yourself, that's when the invitations come, the correct invitations come. Really beautiful.
Andrea, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This is Natalie. So there is a question from Nikita, and I know you have a beautiful answer because when you were in our courses, you had a beautiful 3-step questionnaire for generators for builders. So the question is, and if you don't remember, I'll help you remember. Dear generators, could you share examples of the right questions that you received from projectors in your experience? And what I'm referring to, you shared something about asking generators about, do you want an ice cream? Do you need an ice cream?
Should you have it? I think this question works for everybody, especially generators.
Yeah.
When it comes to trusting your body, it's a bit tricky because sometimes we really want things, but we don't need it. We shouldn't have it. So a good, when I'm counseling a generator, I'll ask them, well, do you want the ice cream? And they go, And then I say, do you need the ice cream? And they go, like, should you have the ice cream? So that internal guidance about knowing the difference between want and need can really help make, I think, better decisions.
Yeah. And in general, asking builders closed questions is how it works. There's no question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, is knowing how to ask the builders the right kind of questions. It can really, it's one of the gifts that advisors have when you really learn to ask those questions. And just like Andrea was talking about, listening to those answers, because builders will respond with the or and so you can really hear if it's correct or not. So if you know how to ask the correct yes/no questions, it can help lead and guide the process with the builder, and also lead to that recognition as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. All right, and let me see here. Let's go to Edgar now. I didn't get Edgar's chart here because I brought him in at the last minute, but he is he represents our classic advisor, and he is he's a self-advisor. So I would love to hear, Edgar, a little bit about your decision-making strategy. And just so that you can see, let's see, I'll go to let me go to this slide here, since I don't have your chart here. So as a classic advisor, I forgot what your design looks like, but as the self advisor, having the self-defined connected directly to the there we go. So yeah, I would love to hear your experience, Edgar. And thank you for jumping in.
Can you? There was a noise. I didn't hear some of the things you said. There was a noise in the background.
Oh, all I was just saying is I was just saying that you are a classic advisor, and you're a self-advisor, meaning that you have identity and direction, this yellow diamond here, defined. And I don't have your chart because I just saw you there, so I would love to have you speak, since we didn't have a classic advisor. Again, speaking a little bit about your journey and specifically your decision-making strategy, because it's different from the others that we've heard from. And also in being a classic advisor, not having any of the motors defined.
Yeah. Thanks for the invitation. This was really a good surprise today. I was completely not expecting this kind of session, but anyway, it's so different. I'm here really hearing everybody very with a lot of attention on what everybody's saying, and it's so fascinating that we are so different. So different. What I can resonate and understand and recognize and have a sense of what everybody is saying, and yet my experience is very different. It's the first time I heard about my inner authority, this listening to what I say. I was like, listen to what I say. Okay, that's cool because I like to talk, so that's going to be easy one. So I just need to listen to what I'm saying. Right. But I have so many voices in my head, so then which one I'm going to listen to? Because I was used to speak my mind all the time. And my father is a mental advisor, and my older brother is also a mental advisor. And when I was hearing, I think it was Suzanne, she's a mental advisor, right? I got an amazing insight that I haven't had so far and so clear, which was, wow, I've been so conditioned to operate as a mental advisor, and I didn't realize it until recently. Till I started really understand and sense and recognize the difference of my inner authority in comparison to a mental authority, which for me can easily be confused. I operate in you don't have my chart, but I have my only definitions are the 6124, 4323, and 18. and my inner authority is the 1/8. So I've been hugely confused about the mind talk and the self talk. So this has really pushed me to learn to listen to my body, because my inner authority never speaks when I'm in my mind. It never speaks when I'm not at ease. It never speaks when I'm not relaxed. So I have to monitor. I don't have to. I just observe that it's what's happening for me. I'm kind of describing the best I can my own process with this. Is I'm observing that I have to really see which state of being I am. Which state of being I am in each moment. That's so important. Because that will tell everything about what I'm going to say. That will tell everything about my future, at least the near future, because it's what I'm saying in the moment. And it's so simple, and yet it's so difficult. Because when you spend all your life believing that this is you, because that's what you've been, this is what you recognize, and suddenly there is a voice coming out that is familiar. It sounds like home, and yet is strangely comfortable. It's so comfortable that it feels like it's not true. It can't be so easy. Life cannot be that pleasant and beautiful and enjoy it. Like, it cannot, but it is. It is. So it's like, I'm going to give you a practical example since you are talking about BG5. This is a typical one because I recently joined the same corporation I was working 3 years ago. I quit my job 3 years ago, this same job, and I was invited to join this company 3 months ago, and I went to the same position. In the meantime, the company has been bought by a bigger company, so something has changed. It's not exactly the same environment, but it's pretty much the same because the people are the same people. And yet my way of working is so different now. So different. Now that I'm in the same place doing the same work, now I have a mean of comparison of the before and the after human design, because I met human design right before I quit this job. It was one of the things that really brought me out of it. And I was 3 years out of it, and during those 3 years I mostly didn't do anything. I had some works, but I was mostly just being with myself. I had the blessing to be able to do that. And now it's so fascinating because there's nothing to do. It's crazy. As an advisor for me, it means I really am not doing anything. I show up to work, and I'm just there with whatever is happening. It doesn't matter what's happening. It matters that I'm there. And as long as I'm there, even a situation like today, like as a good 1-3, I made a mistake yesterday, a big one, big one. This one was a big one. It potentially could cause injuries, physical injuries, or that, or because it's equipment that if it fails, it can cause real problems. And at the moment I did, I knew I had done a mistake. Anyway, but I only heard the results today morning. My past self in a situation like this would have absolutely panicked, and I've had spent the whole night finding a way to justify my mistake. So I will prove that people can still trust me. You can still trust me. It was just a mistake. I will just, yeah, you know. I didn't do that. I sleep very well. I said, okay, it's a mistake. Tomorrow I will deal with it. Tomorrow morning meeting. We have a morning meeting. All the departments joined together. One person from each department representing the department, and there was a huge emotional wave with specific topic that I made a mistake. Everybody was pissed off. It was like, oh my god. I didn't do anything. I just listened to them. I heard them. I was sorry, but I didn't apologize either because I don't have to. One of the things I was given permission is I don't apologize for my mistakes. I see what they are, and I just, it happened. Moving on. That's all. There's nothing to do about it. You know, it's done. So and this is freed my spirit completely. This permission to make mistakes, because I've been very repressed in my childhood with specifically that, with mistakes. I couldn't do mistakes. Immediately there will be a punishment. So either psychological, emotional, or physical. No, my parents were not like that. But it could have been. In countries like Portugal, for instance, these things can happen. In villages like where I come from, very small villages, yeah, these things can happen. So yeah, this has been my journey with it.
Wow.
I don't know how does that sound, but it sounds crazy to me. Yeah.
Wow, I love it. And what a beautiful example to really see, you know, working in the same job, being away from it for a while and coming back and approaching it in a completely different way. And it sounds like now really empowered. And I just love how you're able to accept it. And you know, I'm a 1-3 as well. So that making mistakes, you know, there's in a sense a reason or a purpose behind it. And like you said, not getting all upset, not getting bent out of shape. You know, again, you have, for example, emotional intelligence is not defined. So it could be really easy, like you said before, you know, to try to justify it or to try to, you know, do something against it. It's just an amazing, amazing story, Edgar. I'm so glad you shared that.
Yeah, and it's important to, if I remember correctly, it was the other Suzanne that said it about that we are usually needed in corporations and and it's true. I'm realizing that now. It's really true, and it's not. Everybody is needed. That's a fact. It's just the way society is moving at the moment. There's no other way and no other kind of people that can actually make it function much more easily and smoothly than advisors. It's not to brag about it. It's just a fact. I see what's happening around. So I think all advisors need to give themselves permission to stand up a little bit and, you know, be proud of themselves. It's been a big one for me to really appreciate myself. Because it's necessary. It's necessary.
Yeah.
We are in times of needs for really, how do you say it in English? I don't know, but to cut the crap.
Yeah.
To just leave behind what doesn't work. Let's just leave it behind. It was a mistake. We see it. Let's leave it behind. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Edgar. And thank you so much for just jumping in. I know you weren't prepared today, and that was brilliant. Brilliant.
I was, yeah, you killed me, woman, here. I was waiting. Is she going to... I was going around the house and doing my yoga and making my food, and like, is she... No. We're like, this feels like waiting for an invitation. It's painful.
Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah,
great to have you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And so I think we've gone through everyone except for Lavina. And so, Lavina, I would love for you to share and wrap everything up. Lavina is a part of the BG5 Business Institute, and so it's just been brilliant hearing each and every one of you. And this discussion has been so incredibly rich. And I know I see there's been a lot going on in the chat and questions area as well. So again, really, really brilliant. So I would love to invite Lavina to wrap things up and share what's there for you as far as what you feel is important that advisors should know and take away from everything that we've discussed and looked at today.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Karen. And I just want to say a special thank you to you and Natalie. You can hear the emotion in my voice because watching and hearing all of these beautiful projectors sharing their story and how inspiring and amazing it is to be able to come together and have this kind of communion. I can't thank you enough because it's just inspiring, beautiful, awesome, perfect. I would be jumping up and down if I weren't wearing a suit right now, trying to be professional and all that. But I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this. And that's one of the things that I find projectors feel like perhaps a motorless boat without oars. You're just kind of drifting along, and until you find that place where you can plug in to a place where they appreciate the value that you bring, they recognize you for your gifts, they allow you to be who you are, there's nothing better in this life than to be able to be yourself in a team, in a working environment. And that's one of the beautiful gifts that I've been given and one of the major reasons for my success. The right people that are energetically healthy for you will bring you along on a journey you could never have imagined. And I would not be here without people like you, Karen and Natalie, who recognize and honor us for who we are. Just everything that we've all been discussing today. So for those of you who are projectors advisors who maybe haven't found your dock yet or your motor, your oars, whatever the case may be, don't give up hope because there is a purpose for you. There's a purpose for everyone on this planet. And to be able to find that place, it's an alignment to your decision-making strategy. It isn't anything else. So being invited into human design in 2012, that's my story. Somebody took me by the shoulders and said, you need to know this, because I was behaving as a generator. And that's one of the things I wanted to touch upon, is that the one thing that all of us, even though we're all advisors, we all have this one thing in common as far as an undefined energy resource. And that's where our addictions are. That's where our mind will think that we have to, we must, we should, in order to keep up with the world, to be seen, to be valued, to be appreciated. Even I still to this day, I have to catch myself because there's all these things I can see that I want to do and I just don't have the energy for it. But my mind will keep cycling. And if you believe the mind story, you spiral yourself down into too much self-judgment and you're lost. You're not in a vibrational place, an energetic receptivity to what really needs to be done, which is just what is needed from you with that mostly one other person at a time. That one person that you're talking to, that you're advising, that you're successful with in interaction, that one person could go on and make all the difference in the world. And you're that person standing behind that person. And that's what I love in my design, that person that can advise and guide and then just watch as they take off like a shooting star. So that's my inspiration. So I feel really blessed and honored to be a part of this journey. And I think those are my recommendations, is to just wait for it. Be patient, especially those of us who have the emotional intelligence to find. It is not an easy journey. Oh my God, before human design, sick in the head with all of these things that I thought I had to do. And like what Edgar have said, the mistakes, you make the mistake and, oh shit, I gotta hide it. I gotta make excuses for it. It happened and I can't let them see that crap that I did again. But when you start to decondition, you recognize the value and the gift in the mistake, like a clapperboard, take one, take two. It's a mistake on the journey to success. And we would not have our successes without learning from our mistakes. Because every day, every moment, every breath that you take, there is an inspirational journey that's waiting to be unpacked, that you cannot help the other person up the ladder if you have not yet experienced it for yourself. So that's my little contribution.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. This has been an amazing, amazing journey. I have, just like Lavina was saying, I've so appreciated what each and every one of you shared. Really rich, and I learned a lot as well. And I hope all of you who attended have also learned quite a bit about what the advisor is all about. And I love, again, the advisors are the most diverse. There's the most different types of advisors, and it was really cool to see all of you and how different each and every one of you are, and how powerful each of you are in your own respects. And I think more and more the world is needing advisors. The world is needing advisors to step up and lead and guide the process, to do what they're naturally here to do. There's a shift in the power structure. There's a shift in the way that we approach things. There's a shift in the way that we are doing business. And I think one of the biggest shifts is having advisors step into the role that they're designed for. Not as builders, but as true advisors, leading and guiding the process, knowing how to utilize energy correctly, how to utilize and direct the energy properly. If we as builders knew how to, use our energy properly, think of how things may shift or change in the world, just in our personal world, in our families, to our communities, to our cities, states, countries, to the world. So it really is the time for advisors to own their brilliance, own their uniqueness, own the power that you have that no builder has, to be able to lead and guide the process in that way.
Yeah, we really need to shift our perspective on what's valuable, because our model for what's valuable is what we see out there, and thinking that we have to conform ourselves or compromise. Worst case scenario, we compromise the integrity of what we really are here to do to belong or be a part of what we see. And that's not what we're here for. We have to be able to guide and just bring us perspective, not the doing. And that's my biggest addiction, is trying to do instead of just sitting back and waiting. So it's still, to this day, a challenge. But the more and more I make the mistake, the more and more I learn not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's really a gift and a blessing especially to be working with people who know how to support you in your role and your gifts. So thank you very much personally, Karen, for everything that you do for all of us. Thank you for this beautiful webinar. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. It really was a pleasure to listen and to observe.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And just to wrap everything up as well, I just wanted we are recording this. So if you want to go back and listen to the recording, we just, posted our event calendar. So we just have an event calendar up and ready. So if you go to the BG5businessinstitute.com/courses, this is where you can also find, we have a lot of free events coming up this month. So next week, Lavina is going to be doing an intro on career types. Next week, also, Natalie's going to be doing a webinar on unwinding your monkey mind. Again, we have our success as an advisor. So if you're looking for the recording, the quickest and easiest way to be able to find the recording, as soon as I get the recording up, you'll have access to it here on the calendar as well as our BG5 Lives. If you want to see any of our past recorded BG5 Lives, if you go back in the calendar, you can click on the BG5 Live and you can see the recording. So this is going to be a great place for you to be able to find what's coming up. We have a bunch of new classes here that are starting in September. So here's where you can find the classes. Here's where you can find all of the free classes if you want to get connected, learn more. This is a brilliant place to be able to do that. So again, if you want to watch it again, BG5businessinstitute.com/courses. I've also added it to the very top bar. I forgot to add it here. At the very top bar, I have the calendar of free webinars and schedule. I can't remember what I put up there, but there's a link at the very top right above this band as well as when you go to the homepage, there's a link to it so that you can really easily find it. And again, this is a way to find all of our free webinars, our courses, what's coming up. So if you are interested in learning more about BG5, if you're interested in more about the courses, getting more information, this is where you can quickly and easily find that information. And we have a foundation course that's starting in September as well. We actually have two of them. So Lavina is going to be teaching one as well as Natalie. So we have two foundation courses that are starting. We have a BG5 certification course that's starting as well. And there's the free trials. So again, you get to attend the first class free. And we also have our Profit Potential workshops. And also in September, Chris is going to be teaching the Profit by Being You through communication. So check that out as well. All right. So again, thank you. For those of you who are still here, I'd love to, as many of us that I'm going to get off camera, but as many of you can that can be on camera again, just so that we can see all of your beautiful faces again. Go ahead and show your camera, and we're going to sign off and say bye. I want to change this on my screen as well. Cool. Well, it has been an awesome experience. Thank you. Everything that each of you shared was so rich and so powerful. And I really acknowledge each of you for really stepping into and continuing to practice. It's never done. It's always a process. It's always a journey. I just want to appreciate each and every one of you for everything that you contributed, for all of the advice that you shared, for really stepping up and being a role model, in each of your lines of work. I mean, it's really amazing just the diversity of different roles and different businesses that each of you are in. And so I just really, from the bottom of my heart, just appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. And wishing you tons of success moving forward. And thank you all for your contribution to this webinar today. Any last words before we sign off? Just if there's anything that just pops to mind, or any last words that you want to say before we sign off, and then we'll say goodbye. And if not,
I have a very important one.
Yes, Edgar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Much
all.
gratitude.
Beautiful.
Sure.
All right. Well, goodbye, everyone. Have a fabulous rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing you all in our upcoming webinars. Join us for BG5 Live. Join us for our upcoming courses. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Karen and Natalie.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really cool.
Yeah, thanks for making this happen.
Really fun. Thank you.